Hey everybody, welcome to What's Up Wednesday. I want to digress to a topic that I don't know if I've ever talked about before this week, and that is insurance. And when I talk about insurance, I'm going to focus specifically on automotive insurance because really all of us drive a vehicle and we have that risk associated with vehicle use and with being on the road. So, when we look at a liability standpoint, the greatest risk that we have, I would say the most common risk we have is getting into an accident that's not our fault with an uninsured motorist, and then we have to put a claim against our policy. That's very, very common. But at times, as we see regularly, there are accidents where we may be at fault and we may injure the other driver in the course of that accident. And as we probably know, the highest risk activity that any of us has on a daily basis, and one of the number one leading cause of death in the United States, is automotive accidents. So when we look at that situation where we get into an accident, it's our fault, and we injure the other driver, what is our risk? And I don't think that's talked about enough. And I want to address it just a little bit. And I want to address insurance limits because I think it's important that everybody understands that you need to have the proper insurance in place to cover you in the event of a situation like that. And if you watch the Allstate commercials, Mayhem talks about cut rate auto insurance. And cut rate, if you want to call it cut rate or categorize it, that's what he calls it. It's insurance that has low limits. It meets the minimum standards, but it's not adequate to protect you. So let's dive into that a little bit. And really the idea is that we want to have enough insurance that if we're sued, if there are medical issues, injuries for the other driver, that we're protected and they don't come after us personally to try to reimburse them for that. So at a minimum, we should have a liability policy that covers $100,000 for each person for property damage or injury, and up to $300,000 per accident. That's really key. And this is kind of a minimum coverage. I know that I have 1 million, but 100 and 300, 100 per person, 300 per accident is really where you should look at a starting point. And if you don't know what your limits are, look at your policy, compare them, talk to your insurance broker, and think about getting proper insurance in place. For personal injury protection, where we have an underinsured motor vehicle, maybe they hurt you as an example, and they don't have insurance. Again, bodily injury, 100,000 per person, 300 per accident. And then for underinsured motor vehicle for property damage, 50,000 per accident. That might be a situation where I'm trying to think of where that would apply, but property damage, maybe somebody causes an accident and you get pushed into a building or into a gas pump at a gas station, whatever it may be, and it causes property damage. That insurance is there to cover property damage that's not related to vehicles. So think about that. 100,000 limit per person, 300,000 per accident or aggregate is really where we want to be. And I think it's important to make people aware of this because, once again, like I said, there are so many policy limits out there that people carry where they think they're adequately protected and they're not. And they get into an accident and all of a sudden they find themselves in a lawsuit, their insurance runs out, and they're being sued personally to make up the difference. And it's just not worth it. And when you talk to your broker, ask them the difference in premium price per year for what you maybe have now, if it's under those limits, and what those limits would be, and maybe even the next level up, whether that's 1 million, 500,000, whatever the options might be. Look into it because you'll be happy you did in the event something bad happens. And, I encourage you to be aware of that risk, and especially being safety professionals. Most of you watching What's Up Wednesday are probably safety professionals. It's really good to understand how insurance works. And I'd love to talk more about insurance if anybody wants to talk about it, because it's one of the biggest things that drives our industry. So hopefully that's helpful, and we will see you next Wednesday.